Here we have the Samsung Galaxy NP950 XDB, or colloquially known as the Samsung Galaxy Pro 15. Now, it's pretty frequent that Samsung tries to sort of step in Apple's shadow, whether it's phones or even laptops or even the naming moniker like Pro. Samsung is always kind of one step around the corner from Apple. So what today we want to find out is if this MacBook Pro competitor from Samsung is any good, and if you should get one yourself. Go ahead and get the specs out of the way really quick. This one comes with the 11th generation i7 processor. It comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and that is soldered on, so it is not upgradable. And it comes with a 1 terabyte M.2 PCI Express solid state drive, so it's wicked fast, and that is upgradable, but with 1 terabyte, do you really need to? It also has Intel's Iris Xe graphics, and all of that can be had for about $1,000 depending on where you get it from. Now let's go ahead and talk about this thing a little bit. This laptop, I'm kind of lukewarm on this thing, and for one very glaring reason, and that is the display. You see, it has a 15-inch AMOLED panel, which stands for Active Matrix Organic Light Emitting Diode Display. What that means is that it has organic LEDs, so that means that they were farm to table grown without pesticides and on soil that was cultivated for 3 years with special tilling equipment. And what Samsung went ahead and did is they put that organic display on this laptop, gave it HDR capabilities, put Windows 11's version of True Tone on it, which is called Adaptive Color if I'm not mistaken, and wrapped it all up into a full high definition, non-touch, glossy panel. Now, what I hate about this thing is just how fatiguing it is on the eyes. See, I've been reviewing computers for a long time now, and most of the videos I talk about the displays not being fatiguing to the eyes, but this one has a very interesting property, so to speak. That is that the whites on it are very true, the blacks are very deep, and that's of course thanks to the AMOLED panel. See, the thing is that any kind of fine graphics such as like charts or text, this kind of thing, has this sort of like red kind of haze on the outline of it, and that is the result of something called a PENTILE display. Now, this was invented by Samsung, and it's a pretty popular thing that they're doing along their Galaxy products, but basically it is where they have positioned the pixels on the panel itself, kind of array of red and blue pixels. And Samsung claims that they do that for reliability, longevity, and interestingly enough, to make it less fatiguing on the eyes. But we find that it is a pretty big mistake to use that kind of technology in something like a laptop where ultimately somebody is going to be looking at things like charts, graphics, and text predominantly on this thing. So that was a really huge misstep from Samsung to put that kind of display on here. It's one thing if it's on like a smartphone that's going to be used for like pictures and this kind of thing, but on a computer where you're like, again, making this thing for somebody that's like a student that's going to be typing Word documents and stuff like that, it really makes for an unpleasant viewing experience. Now that said, it is again a glossy panel. It is quite bright. Samsung claims that it is a 370 nit display. We were only able to get about I think like a maximum of about 304 nits out of this thing. So I think that they're also lying about the brightness on it. But that said, even despite it being glossy, it is bright enough to where like if you're outside on a college campus or working near a window, we don't think that the reflection of light on the display is going to be all that disrupting. So that said, we think we are giving it a very gracious 5 out of 10, and it's awarded that based on the fact that it's quite feature rich and it's bright and colorful enough, but ultimately quite ugly and unpleasant to sit in front of. The other thing that we don't particularly care for are the speakers. Sound by AKG. Now, it tends to be that when a company boasts about where the speakers came from, whether it's Dolby, Beats by Dre, AKG, that the speakers aren't very good. And this Samsung laptop is really no exception. They do get loud enough, and they produce highs and mids decently. Lows struggle, but where it really struggles and kind of distorts slightly is when it shifts from low to high sounds. As a result, you're left, and again, they get loud enough, but they're not quite as loud as you kind of wish they would be on a $1,000 computer. So ultimately, We're gonna rate these speakers a 6 out of 10. They're good for maybe like listening to a podcast, probably even like watching a movie with some friends. And that said, the viewing angle on the display is pretty fantastic. So if you are all gathered around a dorm room table, this kind of thing, watching a movie on it, I think it'll be okay for that. But if you're doing any kind of audio production or audiophile listening, that kind of thing, you are going to want a set of headphones. Apple's speakers on their MacBook Air and their MacBook Pros are far superior to the speakers on the Galaxy Pro here. So yeah, 6 out of 10. Now let's talk about some things on this machine that I really do enjoy. That is the keyboard. It's fantastic. Not only is it full-size keys, but it also has a full-size numpad on the right side here. It's backlit. It's all around just very tactile, responsive, comfortable to type on. I think I got something like 105 words per minute when using it. It just feels really, really great in the hands, natural. It's excellent. We're gonna go ahead and award the keyboard a 9 out of 10. Same goes for the trackpad. Trackpad is pretty decent, huge. Again, kind of another, you can tell where they were looking at. Big trackpad to compete with Apple's big trackpads, multi-gesture support. It has a very, very firm click, which is almost maybe a little bit too firm. Ultimately, it goes where you want it to go, though for the most part, it doesn't ghost too bad. And we're gonna go ahead and award the trackpad an 8 out of 10. But while we're talking about fancy little trackpads, let's go ahead and backlights on the keys. Let's talk about the features of the Samsung Galaxy Pro 15. So, comes with a Windows Hello fingerprint scanner. It comes with a 720p camera, and this is what that footage looks like now. This is the quality you can expect from the Samsung's 720p camera. It's pretty bad. Like, pretty bad. Comes with Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1, so it has all of the latest wireless technologies in it. It does not have a Windows Hello compatible camera. It has HDR, it has their version of True Tone called Adaptive Color, it has backlights on the keys. All in, we're gonna go ahead and rate the features, I think like an 8 out of 10 for this computer. What is it missing? Well, it probably could do to have maybe the Windows Hello compatible camera. Again, at a $1,000 plus price range, we think that ultimately they probably should have put that in there. It's also made out of some nice aluminum materials and stuff like that. So features are given, and oh, and there's also this kind of nifty feature where there's like a power button on it. Power button, it's a button that allows you to tell the computer how powerful you want it to be. When you hit it, you can turn like the fan off and make it run in silent mode or make it run in like high performance mode if it's sitting on the charger, this kind of thing. So again, feature-wise, it's like pretty decent. Now let's go ahead and talk about the input and output on this computer. So, on this side, and this is, I mean, it's so lightweight. This is, by the way, this is, I should probably save this for the mobility part of our review here, but it gets pretty wide enough for most people's desks. On this side, you have a micro SD card reader. You have a USB super speed port, nice little touch. Then you've got a headphone jack to plug in some headphones when you don't want to listen to those subpar speakers. You have an HDMI, full-size HDMI port, which is a very nice touch. A lot of people will like that when they're connecting projectors, this kind of thing. You have a Thunderbolt 4 port, then a USB-C port. And these two ports allow you to plug in the charger via a traditional USB-C charger. There is one feature that it's lacking, and that's that it doesn't run on solar energy. But you do have the ability to charge it on USB-C, and I think that will make a lot of travelers and people floating in and out of airports very happy. We are gonna go ahead and give the I/O on this computer an 8 out of 10. There really isn't a whole lot they could have done better, I think, other than maybe another Thunderbolt 4 port or maybe like Ethernet, I suppose. I mean, really the I/O on it is just about as good as you want on a laptop, and especially one of this size. We were very impressed with the I/O on this computer. Mobility, razor thin, absolutely as light as a feather and stiff as a board. Has what they claim, Samsung claims, is an aluminum frame, although it does feel kind of plasticky. The display kind of moves a little bit. They could have done maybe a slightly better job with the hinges on this thing, but all in all, it is just an incredible, it feels good and like it can take a beating. Like even despite its like paper thinness, throwing this thing in and out of a backpack when you're going through a college classroom, an airport, this kind of thing, we feel it will be pretty damn good. And all of that and we'll get into the power of this thing in a little bit, but I mean, they packed a lot of power and stuff into a very, very tight frame. We're gonna go ahead and give the mobility a score of an 8 out of 10. The reason why we're taking a couple points away from it is because Samsung claims that you can get about 20 hours of battery life on this thing. Most real-world tests that we were researching only showed about 10 hours or so. We were never able to get more than probably about 8 hours on it in any of the tests that we did. So I don't know if we got a weird model, a bad battery, or it just, again, people are lying, or Samsung is lying about the specs. Not really sure. But that said, we're gonna go ahead and give the mobility factor an 8 out of 10 because it really is an impressively light and well-made machine. And again, a lot of horsepower in there for what it is. While we're on the subject of horsepower, benchmarks on this thing. Let's go ahead and just let's shift gears here for a second. You get a 25% gaming, 89% desktop, a 24% workstation. Now, what all of that means is that this computer is going to be for maybe like somebody moving in and out, like a traveling journalist, for example. Somebody that is also maybe doing like mobile audio studio, like podcasting, this kind of thing on the go. I don't really think you're gonna be able to do any kind of meaningful gaming with it, and for that matter, I don't think you wanna do any kind of like 4K editing with it, but you definitely have enough power to do some like 1080p editing, some like Zoom calls, GoPro, this kind of stuff, and you probably could even record or edit some like raw 1080p footage for that matter. It has enough power to definitely knock out and handle things like audio editing like in Fruity Loops with a lot of plugins. You could do some CAD work on this thing too. It's definitely not gonna be like a super CAD computer, but it will definitely do CAD and handle CAD pretty well. It's gonna be good for accountants, not really good for nonprofits because it's kind of expensive, but just this is like a good like business class machine for somebody that travels and just wants something kind of light and that they can move from desk to backpack. Also really good for students and college students because we feel like it's powerful enough to like last throughout a college career, but also built well enough to like not like die from a college kid's recklessness. So yeah, power, it's like pretty good. I mean, the thing is super fast and peppy, from restart, it's got, quick boot and all that other stuff. When you turn that thing on, I mean, it is instantly in Windows. There's really not a whole lot to complain about. Let's go ahead and switch back to the fun little like geometric shapes. But now for the question that we want answered, which is, do I recommend this machine and should you go buy one yourself? Yeah, it's a good computer, but a MacBook Air is better. So you have now in the Apple world, you have like the MacBook Air, the MacBook, and then the MacBook Pros. And now you can't buy a 15-inch MacBook Air. People have been asking for one for a long time, but Apple's not delivering. So really, and now Apple's new like MacBook Pro lineup, they're a lot thicker, much more like pro-oriented machines. And that's kind of like the weird thing about this computer. Again, Samsung uses the Pro moniker, but there's not really anything like pro about it per se. This really is more of a MacBook Air competitor, and frankly, I think that the MacBook Air is a better machine. Even though the MacBook Air has a smaller screen, has better resolution, and just an all-around better panel in general, so I think that you're gonna have a better experience with it. Even the speakers are better. The aluminum frame on a MacBook Air just kind of feels a little bit stronger, a little bit better put together. So yes, if you are anti-Apple and you want nothing to do with their stuff, or you found a good deal on this computer, or you're just a PC enthusiast and you want a nice lightweight PC that you can travel with, we do think that this is a good computer that people will enjoy. All in, it gets about a 7.5 out of 10, and that's just based on the fact that you've got a lot of really, really nice features and options in this machine, but really that screen is it's pretty bad. That is the Samsung Galaxy Pro 15. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us in the comments section. Please like and subscribe, and we will be back with another video soon.